Hello, Raven sir.
Yes, yeah.
Sir, afterwards you have to unmute the mic of Shivdev sir also, because he will speak at the end. So at the end you have to unmute sir.
Shivdev. Yeah,
Else,
okay.
have you given the permission to unmute by himself?
Yeah, permissions are already there. I'm not
Okay.
restricting anyone. Just give an instruction to the students that ask them not to unmute themselves at all. So if they
Okay.
have any doubts, they can ping on the chat.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So still participants are joining, Chinapriya?
What, ma'am?
Participants are joining, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Rashmi madam. Rashmi madam.
Hello, Rashmi madam.
Rashmi madam. ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಸರ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ರಶ್ಮಿ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
ಸರ್ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್. ಅವ್ರು ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಡೋಂಟ್ ವರಿ. 1 ಮಿನಿಟ್, ಒಂದೇ ನಿಮಿಷ.
ಬಂದ್ರು ಸರ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ. ಸರ್ ಬನ್ನಿ ಸರ್, ಬನ್ನಿ ಸರ್.
ಬಂದೆ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ವಿಡಿಯೋ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್,
ಒಂದೇ ನಿಮಿಷ.
ರೆಡಿನಾ?
Ready.
ಸೌಮ್ಯ?
ಎಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಇದೀನಿ.
ಭುವನೇಶ್ವರಿನೂ ಇದಾರಲ್ಲ?
ಇನ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ.
ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೀನಿ, ಒಂದೇ ನಿಮಿಷ. ಸಮ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇದೆ. ವಿಡಿಯೋ
ಆಯ್ತು
ಓಕೆ, ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್.
ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿ. ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಪಾಸ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ. ಹಲೋ,
ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡದೆ ಸರ್?
ಮಾಡಿ.
ಸರ್ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್.
ಅದೇ ವಿಡಿಯೋದ ಏನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇದೆಯಂತ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಇದೆ. ನನ್ನ ರಾತ್ರಿ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಏನೋ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನೋ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ. ಓಕೆ. logging, just connecting.
हाँ. Okay.
Start marketing, I'm with you because I didn't follow it. Don't keep it. Just waiting.
Okay.
Okay. Jinapriya.
Rashmi
हाँ ma'am. Jinapriya start.
Okay.
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ.
Okay.
ರಶ್ಮಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ.
Okay. A very warm good morning to one and all present here, to distinguished dignitaries, respected principal, esteemed resource person, ladies and gentlemen. This is moderator of today's webinar, Jinapriya, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, SGR College for Women. I hope all are safe in these hard times, that is COVID, pandemic and lockdown situation. SGR College for Women is in the forefront of educating young women for more than 3 decades since 1988, with a vision in pursuit of excellence. With this introduction, I thank one and all for joining us for today's webinar, organized by Department of CS in association with Harvard Technologies and IIT Hyderabad. AI is a core transformative way by which we are rethinking and how we are doing everything. Keeping in this mind, to give insight knowledge on this, today this webinar is being organized. Now, I call upon Rashmi A, HOD, Department of CS, to introduce the gathering. Over to you, Rashmi ma'am.
Thank you, Jinapriya ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Welcome all of you for today's webinar, Artificial Intelligence. So firstly, I would like to welcome our resource person, Mr. Revant Kumar, Senior Research Engineer at Harvard Technologies. Welcome you, sir. And next, I would like to welcome our Executive Committee member, SJR Education Society, Mr. DC Shivdev, who is among us and providing constant support over many years and also for organizing this webinar. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to thank you, sir. Next, I would like to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Prema Siddharaju ma'am. A heartily welcome to you, ma'am. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Hemant from SJR College for Science, Arts and then Commerce. Welcome you, sir. And last but not least, I would like to welcome our department staff member as well as my dear participants for this session. Welcome you all. Thank you. Over to you, Jinapriya ma'am.
Thank you, Rashmi ma'am. Now, I call upon Rekha S ma'am, Department of Computer Science, for the guest introduction. Over to you, Rekha ma'am.
Thank you, Jinapriya. A very good morning to one and all present here. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker today, who is going to talk to us about the emerging technology, artificial intelligence. Our speaker, Red Kumar, has spent more than 5 years in software industry as a senior software engineer in companies such as Pegasystems, Mindtree Limited, in full stack development. Currently acts as a senior research engineer at Harvard Technologies. Revant has delivered more than 50 workshops, student and faculty development programs at various premier engineering colleges, including IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, IIT Hyderabad, BITS Pilani Hyderabad, and NIT Tirchi. He also delivered more online FDP by mentoring more than 1,000 faculties and students on emerging technologies under premier institute like IIT Roorkee and IIT Tirupati. Being an expert in emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, digital marketing, and IoT, he is a technologist, business consulting expert in those fields. Thank you, sir. I also take this opportunity to introduce Sir DC Shivdev, who has served as Vice President of SJR Education Society, Chairman of SJR Law College, and Chairman of PU Women's College. Currently, he is serving as Executive Committee member, SJR Education Society, has consistently contributed to the growth of the institution, providing all the benefits necessary for the education of students. We are delighted that the President has agreed to take over this webinar in the midst of his busy schedule. when he asked to take part in this webinar. We heartily welcome you, sir. Thank you. Over to Jinapriya.
Thank you, Rekha ma'am. Now, without further ado, we'll turn over the time over to speaker Revant Kumar sir to take over the session. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much. I am unable to share my video, but anyway, my talk is important than how I look. But yeah, here is my photo so that you guys can at least recognize me like a human instead of a chatbot. So thank you so much for a very warm introduction, and I really appreciate the college for taking this initiative to convey students what exactly is artificial intelligence and emerging technologies like this. And now it is very high time to let students know what exactly is happening around the world. So I think my introduction is already done. So I'm just going with a very basic question that, okay, well, we know what AI is. We are listening to it like each and every day. We are seeing in the news, seeing in the research articles, everywhere the buzzword is artificial intelligence, and there are a few other technologies like IoT, blockchain, and so many. So a very good morning to the students and the faculty. Thanks for joining. And I would start with a very basic question that why should you learn? We know the applications. We are seeing Google Assistant. We are seeing self-driving cars each and every day, and we are seeing a lot of applications which are getting developed on the top of artificial intelligence. So there are a few statistics that I want to show you, and which would make you realize it and inspire you to come and learn the AI, uh, the whole artificial intelligence systems and how to build it. So this is a very small statistic on the number of published papers on AI from 2000 till 2020. So I'm sure during this pandemic, a lot of research came out, and I'm sure the graph should have been shooted up. So this is the kind of trend of the AI papers and the kind of research which is going into it. Coming to the learning, of course, this is the base of your research, and these are the statistics of a few enrollments happened across the top universities. I'm not talking about the smaller universities or some regional universities, but this is at Stanford level. If you see the number of students who are interested in machine learning courses, if you don't know machine learning, don't worry, I'll tell you what it is. So this is the trend, and obviously for us to study, we need money. So without this, nothing happens. So this is a trend of a venture capital fund or venture capital investment in artificial intelligence related startups. There are various startups which are coming up each and every day, which are into artificial intelligence and helping people to use these applications. So I think now you have a reason to learn and also a scope to learn AI. And moving forward, I'm sure you guys should be watching this Money Heist at least after the COVID situation, and you should have questioned yourself why am I getting recommended with the similar content videos whenever I watch a video, and my whole timeline of my YouTube, Netflix, or any other OTT platform is basically works on something called a recommendation system, right? So every recommendation system on these OTT platforms, the web series or whatever you call it, is actually based on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So you no need to see artificial intelligence as a new technology. We already know that. We already know it. We experienced it right from the time we were born. When you were born, you won't be in a situation where you can differentiate between an apple and an orange, right? No, the learning happened eventually, isn't it? You went to the school in your kindergarten, and someone told you A for apple. You saw that picture on your book, and you have no clue, right? You really don't know what apple is. And then you came home, your dad actually made some small pieces of apple and gave you. You were a kid. So, and he told that, okay, this is apple, and this is how it tastes. So you experienced it, and whether you liked it or not, that's your feedback. And you do the same for each and everything that you learn, that you know in this world, whether it is a car, whether it is a bike, whether it is a laptop, a mobile phone, whatever it is. You just heard about it, you looked at it, you understood in a particular language. It could be a regional language or English or any other language or a secondary language. Then you experienced it, that particular thing, by using it, or by just looking at it or whatever it is. And then you gave some feedback, and the whole data of that particular object gets stored in your hardware. And what is your hardware? That is your brain, right? So this is the procedure of our intelligence. If I call this as intelligence, storing the data of apple in your brain, and understanding, if you look at a new fruit again, let's say, you would be in a position to say whether it is an apple or not. That is decisioning, and that is your intelligence. And it happened eventually for you after a few people putting a lot of effort, right? Your teachers put a lot of effort to teach you something out of the textbooks, and those textbooks are basically a very organized format of data. This statement is pretty important because we are going to do the same in artificial intelligence as well. A proper organized format of data, which is nothing but a textbook. They took this textbook, taught you in the classrooms, whether it is literature, whether it is science, physics, or whatever it is. So you learned, you experienced, you gave a feedback, and you gain intelligence. This is the procedure, right? So however we develop our computers, right? Not only just computers. By computers, I mean, I'm talking about only computers because I cannot talk about those materials or those things which cannot store data, because intelligence is very strongly associated with data, right? Information. You can build intelligence only on the top of information. To store information, you need memory. To put memory, you need to have a memory unit. You should have known this, right? A memory unit in your CPU or on your motherboard or wherever it is. And you have various different types of computers right now. Your computer is a computer. I mean, your laptop, your personal computer. Not only just that, you have your mobile phone, which is a computer again. And you have your car, which is computer again. Your car is controlled by a single CPU, right? Or a single controller, which will give instructions to various different parts. I'm talking about the modern cars, which are not completely mechanical, but which are embedded with few infotainment systems and few controls, which are done by the electronics, right? I'm talking about these systems. How about we make these systems not just functional? By functional, I mean they just perform some arithmetic and logical units or logical operations. That's it. Your computers currently are doing the same, right? They just perform some arithmetic and logic unit or logical operations. If you take your old Nokia phone 1100, what it does, it just takes some inputs from you. They have some pre-installed software. According to the instructions in that particular phone, it will operate. That's it. It won't do anything beyond it. But now, currently, if you give any kind of instruction to your Google Assistant or Siri, it just at least responds back saying whether whatever you asked is apt or not. If you say that call John on your phone, it takes a decision whether to call him or not, right? So that decision making capability is what we are calling as intelligence. I'm not talking about arithmetic or logical ability. That is already there in our computers, and we are very happy with it, right? So of course, to develop this kind of decision making capability or intelligence, you again need arithmetic and logic units only, right? So giving this ability of choosing whether something is right or wrong itself is the intelligence. And if you give it to machines, and then I call it as artificially imparted intelligence, that is nothing but your artificial intelligence, right? So this is Google when they launched. This is Google's beta. This is how it looked, and this is Google now, which is celebrating, like, I'm talking about Google Maps in specific, which is celebrating 15 years. What was the difference? So when you saw Google Maps before 15 years, it is just a small map, just like the way you look at the landscapes or look at the countries, just like the way you look at an atlas, right? Your atlas book, which you studied in your school. But currently, Google Maps is more intelligent that it even will give you a prediction of traffic, and we are experiencing it each and every day. Everyone knows it. So what's happening behind, and why now the question is, why it took 15 years for Google to build it? Why not just 5 years? Okay, fine. To build a technology, it would at least take 5 years, and that to a Google like company would definitely be able to build these kind of advanced systems within 1 year, with the kind of software support that they have, with the kind of human resource support that they have. So why do you think that it took them 15 years? Let me tell you why. It is just because people need to use it. People need to use Google Maps to make it more and more better. How? And that is the reason why Google is giving you all the applications for free. That is your freemium business model. It's not premium, it is freemium business model, where they collect all your information, and this information is then converted into textbooks. I'm not talking about literally textbooks, but I'll draw the analogy. They convert all the data that you're generating. What is the data that you generate on Google Maps? You just switch on your GPS, you travel from point A to point B. That is the data that you generate. That is one pattern that you generated. So with how much speed that you traveled to that point A to point B, right? So I stay in Hyderabad, and if I just travel from my place to airport, let's say, it just takes me 1 hour normally without traffic. With traffic, it takes me 1.5 hours. And if I'm coming from an internal area in Hyderabad to airport, it will take me like 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Okay. Lucky that I'm in Hyderabad, I'm not in Bangalore, so I can reach on time. But I'm kidding. So these are just like me. There are various different people who travel, like lakhs of people who travel to the airport. Now they are not doing it, but that is the kind of data that we generate, and that data is again used to enrich Google Maps to give you the traffic predictions properly. Means it took Google 15 years just to collect the information. That's it. That is why they took 15 years. And they launched this traffic detection system or this traffic prediction system in 2015. But Google Maps launched in 2000 or even before, maybe. Right? So it is all about data. And not only just that application, you have Google Photos, which is helping Google to make Google Lens. So if you focus on a particular image, it will give you, you're experiencing it right now, it will give you some detail or similar images of the same landscape or the picture that you're taking. So why Contacts is free? Because they want to look at all your contact information, and they want to look at how you're planning your day by using calendar. They're looking at your Google Docs, the kind of documents that you're making. They'll easily understand whether you're a student or a researcher by looking at the Google Docs of yours. So it is very important nowadays to understand the users. That is the main question. You may ask me, why exactly we need to use all this, and what is the biggest scope of artificial intelligence? There is only one requirement for it. The one requirement on which Google and Facebook are making billions and billions and probably trillions of dollars is answering only one question. What is your user? Who is your user? What does he do? What is he doing today? What what could he do in the coming 10 days or 25 days? So we have systems which can actually predict this. without you, without you involving in it, without you knowing it, they can actually predict what you could do potentially after 25 days. What could you purchase after 25 days? So that they will push that kind of content or the ads so that you purchase a product. That is the ultimate goal. So identifying the customer or identifying the user properly, understanding what he is doing, and then selling him the products which are getting which basically sponsor Facebook or Google. That is the whole requirement here. As simple as that, right? So that is one, and that is one way, and this is one of the major segment where people are leveraging artificial intelligence. If you talk about Amazon has its own kind of a very intelligent recommendation system, right, which will make you buy products by showing them, right? It will show you on various different platforms, not only just Amazon. So one of the major application of artificial intelligence is here. Now if you ask me, okay, talking about data, right? So this is the kind of data which got produced in 2014, and now the estimate was by 2020 we must be producing 44 zettabytes of data overall. I'm sure it must be more than this. You go and look at the statistics, the the complete data across the world which got produced till date. Just look at the kind of information that we have. So big data is one technology which will one other important thing here is that the data that we generate, as we are talking about data, without you using it properly, it is just trash. The one that you're seeing on the screen, it is just trash if you're not using this data properly. What do I mean by using it is, you must be knowing there are two kinds of data, right? Majorly unstructured and structured, right? Structured data is just like your Excel sheet where you have tables and proper assignment of things to let's say if I have an Excel sheet of my class, if I say that what is the age of Abhishek in your class, you just go to the name Abhishek, you just get the number and you look at the age, you must be able to tell it, okay, this is the age. What if I shown you a group photo of your class and I asked a stranger to come and tell what is the age of Abhishek? First of all, he won't be in a situation to identify who Abhishek is. That is unstructured information. Your images, your videos, your WhatsApp text or the text messaging that you do, and music or audio, this is all unstructured information, and it just looks like the junk that you're seeing on the databases. It just looks like this. But in machine learning or in artificial intelligence, as I told you, we try to draw an analogy, right? You need to have proper textbooks. So you need to convert this garbage into textbooks. And what will help you to do that? This one, data analytics. As the context came, let me tell you something. You don't see a machine learning engineer at a company. There is no designation like that. Probably it may come eventually, but currently there is no designation like machine learning engineer or AI engineer. You mostly see, of course, there are few roles in few companies. It depends on the kind of company's hierarchy, how they name it. You see data analytics engineer, or sorry, a data analyst or data science expert or data expert. Why? Because to build any kind of AI system, you first need to analyze the data. That is 80% of the task. Once you know that, your 20% is just implementation of it. So people must be wondering, if I want to become or build an AI system or a machine learning system, what do I do? You just go and learn data analytics. That is the first thing that I would say, right? So this junk of data, like this trash of data that we generate each and every day, is actually mined by all these huge companies in very huge, by using very high processing power. They convert all this unstructured information to structured information. You may ask me, why the hell I should create this into a structured information? That is the question. So that will be answered by this learning from experiences. As I told you, learn, experience, and give feedback. That is how your AI system works. That is how we humans work, right? So how can you give this capability to a very small example, right? To a computer that to differentiate between an apple and an orange. How do we differentiate normally? You just look at it, you look at the features of it. If it is more red, more spherical, and if the surface is smooth, and if it tastes little citrus, then it is an apple. This is just information. You're collecting information from it, right? So what if I take the same information from 100 apples and store in my brain? That is what we did till now, right? Whenever I am given with a new fruit, I'll just identify by just tasting it or looking at it, right? So that is how your AI systems work. For that, you need to have information about these 100 apples, right? Because each and every apple is unique, isn't it? Some apples may weigh 50 grams, some apples may weigh 60 grams. So whenever you're given with a new fruit which is weighing 55 grams, okay, this is in the middle, this could be an apple. Okay, it is looking red, it could be an apple. It is just could be, but it is not, it is apple. The reason why I'm using could be is because it is just a prediction. And your AI systems or your intelligence, actually, we do predictions in each and every moment in our life. You do predictions in your examination. You learn in your class and you go to the examination hall and you just predict an answer. You just replicate an answer, assuming that, okay, there is more probability that this answer is correct because it is coming from your intelligence, right? So similarly, your AI systems basically work on a similar approach, and this is the kind of unstructured information that you produce each and every day. And this represents, actually, from all the devices that we are using currently, the data that we are generating will go to the cloud. I'm sure you must be knowing what cloud is, how cloud computing works. If not, don't worry, we are going to discuss that in the course. But yeah, so all this information will be kept on cloud, and on the cloud you basically run all these big data procedures, or it could be big data, it could be blockchain, it could be any heavy data handling technique, right? That you can implement. And the whole goal here is to do two things. One is store the information in an optimized way, and the second thing is you need to convert this stored information into structured information to help your AI systems, because once that is structured, then you will be having a power to answer questions. So if someone asks you what AI is and how it works, you just say that using data to answer questions, the same definition of intelligence. So these kind of applications, tagging people, identifying, identifying faces, representing and giving them the names to it, these kind of applications, the root of that is just converting your information, right, into a proper structured format, and then identifying. Let's look at a small application, a medical application, right? So I want to implement a skin cancer detection technique using AI, because the reason is, let us just understand the current situation. There is COVID going on. Let us say in this situation, I got a very huge skin rash on my forearm, on my left forearm, right? It is not suggested to go to doctor right now because probably the doctors are getting infected a lot. Then I want a system which can recommend me the medicine, right? So I want to replace the doctor, and in coming ages, right, there could be these kind of requirements where you never know, where you cannot contact with people at all. You must be relying on machines the way that we are relying upon Zoom right now. So these kind of applications where if I want to, of course, artificial intelligence itself, the main purpose of it is to remove the manual intervention. You may ask me, sir, we may lose jobs. I'll come to that. So removing the manual intervention and replacing them with a machine. So this is the very basic procedure of machine learning, and the same will be applied on deep learning. Or so your Siri, your Google Assistant, your Netflix recommendation systems, your Amazon's chatbot. Sometimes you don't talk to your Amazon customer service. Your chatbot will basically help you to initiate a refund on its own. There won't be a person on the other side. right? So that is in the customer support applications. All these systems use the same block diagram that you're looking on the screen. Just the data changes. That's it. Here, the data that I'm using is, okay, let's come back to our example where skin rash detection or skin cancer detection. So I was worried that it could be skin cancer, let's say. Now I want to confirm whether it is skin cancer or not. So I need to develop a system which must be able to look at the rash and understand which category this rash comes under. Your doctor does the same. Your doctor took nearly 10 years to study, you know, to study the, mechanism of how skin works, what could be various different skin rashes, what are various different components inside the skin. As a human, he took 10 years to do it. And he got certified by some institute. Then he is eligible to practice as a doctor. Why can't I do the same? Because I have data with me. I have books with me which can actually feed all this information, the same what doctor is studying, to a machine and at least be able to do the initial diagnosis. Just by I'll just scan this skin rash, and that must be able to tell which kind of which kind of rash it is. So various different applications like this, you can apply the same to plant diseases and help farmers to just identify which kind of plant disease it is, so that they'll be suggested with an appropriate pesticide instead of going to a doctor or asking someone to come and do the consultation. So various different applications. This comes under computer vision plus artificial intelligence plus images. So you take this data, right, and use the training, the same kind of training which happens during an MBBS course. You do the training, you build a model, and then you do the prediction, just like the way your doctor does. So the same thing applies for any kind of system. Let us say you're talking about Netflix recommendation systems, right? You take all the data, like data of various different movies, series, documentaries, everything, and then you categorize this information, right? You categorize a movie. Sometimes we see whenever you upload a YouTube video, if you never did that, just try to do it. They'll ask you to enter some keywords, right? So those keywords basically help you to classify which kind of video it is. So you tell the YouTube system or the YouTube algorithm that, okay, this comes under this category. So let us say I uploaded a video on cats, a small cat video which just jumps here and there, and I classified it as funny, cat, and free time pass, and all that. Those keywords I gave. So who's watching all these cats and dogs videos on YouTube? Okay, a lot of people will do that. Will be recommended with my video. So similarly, your Netflix recommendation system works like the same. It will first understand the various different kinds of information. It will categorize it. It will convert into a structured format. Then it will perform the training. There is something called model. We'll discuss that. That is actually kind of advanced. And then you serve the predictions, or you just do the predictions. So this is your machine learning model, and your deep learning works on the same. So for that, here the bigger question is, there are two questions here to address. One, where do I get this data? Because the more the data you have, the more authenticity that you have, then your whole system will work efficiently. I don't say 100%. No one is 100% intelligent. The same applies to your machines as well. No, sometimes we get wrong videos, right? Which you really don't like, but you still see on your recommendation system because it is an error. It cannot match whatever you feel, correct? So these systems are basically not 100% efficient. The prediction values are they will do the predictions to an approximation, but not, you may not get precise information. But every time for engineers and researchers, the main challenge here is to gain at least 99% of precision or 98% of the precision, right? So likewise, you have it is mostly dependent upon the data that you have. More the data that you have, more intelligent you are. Obviously, more the textbooks and more the books that you read, more the knowledge that you put in your brain, more intelligent you are, right? So data is the key, and this will answer your question: why Facebook is free, why Google is free, why all the applications that you're using each and every day are free? Because they need data from you. So instead, they should pay you for using them, not you paying them, right? Because you're giving them information and asking you, okay, use my information and build a system and earn billions. You're just doing a charity by sitting in front of your mobile phone, right? So that is how it works. Then that is, and they took, it is not a simple task, right? To build those kind of free applications also, which works really efficiently. I never saw an outage of Gmail. I always used it. It is always up and it is very efficient. If I just click, it just performs really well. Because all these 20 years they worked on developing very efficient consumer applications which can bring lot of users, some billions and billions of users onto their platforms. Now, if you see every Android phone that we have, the operating system is owned by Google. Most of 80% of the pre-installed applications are owned by Google. Just imagine the kind of data that they are collecting. So the whole reason is to run AI systems or AI algorithms on the top of all the data that we are giving, right? So looking at it more technically, right? There are various different steps that are involved. Of course, these steps are kind of advanced, and you must be wondering. The immediate question that you may get is, okay, sir, you're telling all this. This is really fancy. Then how to build it? So how to build it is, I'll just give you an overview, because if I start how to build it, I may want you to sit for the next 24 hours on the call. I don't want to do that. That is why we designed a course for this. So to build your artificial intelligence systems, we have Python, which is a blessing from the developer community, from the open source community. So open source, you must be knowing what open source is. So Python got various different libraries and modules which will help you to build an AI system within seconds. It is very easy to build it, right? It is very easy to build, right? The concepts may seem really complex, but we already have the ability, the programming ability, and the technology ability, the processing ability, which will help you to just build any kind of very highly intelligent applications within 4 hours. I promise you that. And once you know Python, it is very easy to do that. So that is about the implementation part. Coming to this, collecting data, if you see the steps that are involved here, collecting data is the key. Not only just collecting data here. And if you observe, there are few companies who are in India itself who are just focused on collecting information. That's it. They just collect information. I'm not talking about these big giants like Google and Facebook, but there are various companies who just collect information, who just collect your email ID, who just collect your credit card number and a mobile number which is associated to your credit card, so that they'll get a track on how you spend money per month, so that they'll understand whether you're capable of buying a Mercedes Benz or not. if your earnings are like, or if your spending value is just less than 50,000 per month, there is no point of giving you a Mercedes Benz ad, right? They'll send you a different kind of ad which you could potentially afford. So these kind of companies are there, and you know what? For each and every step that you have, there are dedicated firms for it who run crores of business. Collecting information, you have various companies who do it. Data wrangling, you have companies to do it. There are few companies who are just focused on analyzing the data, who run data analysis, who will be having a team of data analysts and work on it. You have people who work on training algorithm. What is training algorithm here? Okay, as we looked at training, every teacher in your college will be having their own method of teaching. Will you agree? They have their own method. Some use board a lot. Some just attract the audience just by talking. Some just give a lot of assignments for you to give you more practice. Techniques are different. Similarly, in artificial intelligence also, as I told you, machine learning is a way with which you teach a system how to behave, to teach a system how to decide what, just like the way your teachers are teaching you. And you have various different techniques to do it. Those are your algorithms. So one of the, coming from an implementation perspective as an engineering student or a professional, you need to understand which algorithm is the best for me. Let us say you want to implement a plant disease detection system. Which kind of teaching method that I need to use to teach this this computer or that software, so that it will give me accurate results. So you have various different training algorithms. In the course that we'll be talking about, there are nearly some more than 100 training algorithms, and you can make your algorithm on your own. A lot of research is going in this manner where and you know what, it is just mathematics, it is just probability statistics. So even if you are bad at probability statistics, I'm here to teach you from a programming perspective. So machine learning is mostly, or the machine learning algorithms are mostly about probability statistics because it is all about prediction, right? So that is one. And test algorithm is just will help you to how to test a particular system that you built. And why testing is needed, you may ask me. To evaluate how intelligent is my system is, right? So test algorithm is just like your examination, and then deployment is just like giving it to the users directly. So these are various different steps involved in building an artificial intelligence system, and there are various different types of machine learning. So you have supervised learning. We'll be discussing this in depth. So for supervised learning, your Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, Cortana comes under this supervised learning. You have unsupervised. You have reinforced learning. AlphaGo. If you don't know about this AlphaGo, just Google it. Just try to understand what AlphaGo is. It is just a artificial intelligence chess player. So it works on reinforced learning. So we are going to cover these concepts as well in depth, what all these machine learning techniques are. And you have so there is a common confusion among students, right? What is machine learning, what is deep learning, what is artificial intelligence, and how they are different with each other. So I'll give you the difference. Artificial intelligence is not a technique, it is a feature, it is a characteristic. Let us say if I say that I'm more intelligent, or if I say that if you talk about a feature in you, or if you just okay, let's take this example. If you just take a very old computer and a very new laptop which is Amazon Alexa integrated, this is artificial intelligence because it is just having this feature. So AI is just a feature. Machine learning is a technique or a methodology or a kind of technology with which you can make any kind of system artificial intelligent. It is a procedure. Deep learning comes under machine learning. It is a subset of machine learning which will deal with complex programs. If you remember, I told you that more the data that you have, more efficient your systems are. And if you observe your Google Photos, right? So the photo organizing happens automatically. It automatically identifies the faces of your friends and it will organize in a proper manner. So that is a deep learning problem because this application need to run on some billions of mobile phones, isn't it? Some billions of phones, and on each and every phone, again, you have some thousands and thousands of pictures, just a billion into a thousand. Let's say everyone is having only 1,000 pictures. So on this number of information, on this number of data, you need to run algorithms that can be done with your deep learning. So deep learning is just a type of machine learning which will deal with huge amount of data, right? And moreover, most of the real-time applications that you're seeing right now, like take it Google Maps, or take this Facebook's tagging feature, or Facebook's advertising system, your Google advertising system, and there is a lot, guys. The ads that you're seeing on your search engine, whenever you search for something on your Google, there is a lot of artificial intelligence algorithms or mechanisms which go in the background, right? So that feature will be given by your deep learning. Machine learning, a simple example is your machine learning actually deals with very small amount of data, right? The best example and the classic example is your spamming feature in your email, in your Gmail, right? Whether you got an email to decide whether it is spam or not, because here the decision is between only two elements, not multiple elements, right? If I give you a fruit and identify and ask you to tell which fruit it is, to tell it is an apple, you should know that it is not a papaya or a pomegranate, right? So there are various different possibilities in that case. But when it comes to spamming, there are only two possibilities. One is spam or not spam. That's it. If it is spam, take it to that folder and put it there so that your user won't click on it. And if it is not spam, just put it on the inbox. So depending on the problem statements, you can decide whether you need to use deep learning or machine learning. So deep learning is just a mimic of your brain, right? So your brain works on what are the small components in your brain? Your neurons, right? So we build an artificial neural network artificially, of course, and we are going to mimic how our brain works. And so all these mind mapping techniques, we have a few robots who will understand, which will understand and act just like a human. The humanoid robots that you're seeing, they're all built based on this artificial neural network or convolutional neural network, CNN and ANN, right? So this is an example of deep learning thing. So to identify different handwritings, to identify images, your Google Lens and all these are based on deep learning. So that is a pretty much the difference between all these three, the buzzwords of artificial intelligence. Um, and the kind of application that you have, there are numerous applications. Each and every day we are looking at a new invention in terms of AI. So few research areas that you can focus on are customer support. I'm telling you, if you implement customer support, because for every company that you work on, right, every consumer facing company, or there are two types of companies normally, B2B and B2C, business to business and business to customer. For business to customer, the best example is your Facebook, right? Of course, it is B2B as well because it will sell products to businesses also, not only just customer, not only just larger audience. So for all these companies, customer support is pretty important, right? Just imagine Amazon without a customer support. Don't you even will you even experiment to buy a product over there if they tell you that okay, there won't be a customer support? If you get a product, just take it. We won't give you a refund. Will you even open Amazon.in? You never, I promise you. So customer support is that important for the businesses. And at the same time, in Hyderabad, there is a very huge office which is completely dedicated to the Amazon's customer support. And there are thousands of employees who take 25,000 rupees per month and just sit in front of a computer and chat with the people. So obviously, of course, they're giving employment and people are getting employed. I'm coming to the point where people say that this artificial intelligence may create a lot of unemployment. Yes, it does. But unemployment happens in those domains where you think your work can be replaced by a machine. Then you need to question yourself that there is no difference between you and your machine. So you need to upskill yourself. That is a kind of learning that we need to have, because human power getting replaced with artificial intelligence is very inevitable. That will happen, definitely happen. You can't restrict it because it is helping larger audience, right? If I just chat with the chatbot and if it is just resolving my issue within like 10 seconds, it is even beneficial for me as a customer. But as an employee, it is not beneficial for me because they will fire me, right? So a lot of job opportunities will get created in terms of building the AI systems and maintaining them. Job opportunities will increase because even to create AI systems, you need humans only, right? You can't recruit someone from Mars and ask them to do it, right? We are the people who are going to do it, isn't it? So I agree that it increases unemployment. At the same time, as engineers and as the people who are into science and technology, for us there are opportunities. There will be opportunities where you can just help the society by creating AI systems, right? Coming to the limitations, one of the major limitations that I want to talk about is the processing power. Because as I told you, we create lots of information, right? To run or to work on this huge information, you need to have very huge processing power, right? So your normal CPUs are not capable of running machine learning algorithms. Of course, when it comes to the practice course and building prototypes, our CPUs are pretty much enough. But to run an application like Google Lens, let's say, your normal processing power is not enough. You need to have huge servers or huge computers which are complete. They are called GPUs. Learn what a GPU is. So these GPUs will be helping you. So processing power is a limitation when it comes to artificial intelligence. Of course, human power will be replaced, unemployment could increase, and a lot of power consumption could happen. Power consumption is also key. Your servers and your processing power eats a lot of power. Your laptop itself generates a lot of heat, and that heat is basically a outcome of your power or the voltage that you're giving. So a lot of dissipation happens. So power consumption is one challenge, processing power is one challenge, major challenges with AI. Rest all is just good things that AI can do. So coming to the tools that we are going to work on, few tools that you need to be aware of is TensorFlow. That is used in your speech recognition and natural language processing recognition, because if you take your customer support, it is very important to understand the language what people are typing, right? We tend to type our local language in English. We are used to it. So your artificial intelligence systems also must be able to understand what you're typing. So TensorFlow is used over there. We have PyTorch. So these are all the tools that we are going to cover in the course, and these tools are basically used with Python to address your AI related problems. So I'll share you this presentation anyway. Don't worry, I'll just drop this presentation to your faculty so you guys can use this as a reference. But yeah, so these are the tools that we are going to work on. So to give you an overview on what exactly is going to happen inside the course, because it is very important for you to understand what will be happening. The course is totally hands-on. I won't be using a single presentation there. It is all coding. And if you're wondering, or if you're getting scared that, okay, sir, I don't know Python, what Python is, I just saw that in movies. So don't worry, we come from the basics of Python, and even it will be helpful for you in your academics as well. I'm sure it must be in your curriculum. A lot of colleges are putting it in the curriculum in the recent days. So even if you know Java, it is that is fine, because programming is the same everywhere. We just get scared by looking at different words and different names. So we'll be coming from the basics of it, and we'll be focusing on the algorithms of machine learning. I'll be talking a lot of math, a lot of mathematics. You see all your Gaussian functions, your probability and algorithms over there, and how to convert those algorithms into the coding, how to implement that with code is one thing that we are going to learn. Machine learning functions, and there are few libraries, just like your stdio.h. In your C, you have libraries like TensorFlow, you have OpenCV, scikit-learn, and there are various different modules, and we are going to work on real-time exercises and projects. So that is how the course would look like. If you have any doubts, you can reach out to me here. So these are my coordinates. I would prefer if you can just drop me an email if you have any doubts. And yes, that's about it. I talked a lot, I know. So you can just pose me a few questions. I'll give you 5-10 minutes. If you have any questions, you can ask. And I'll share this presentation as well. Let me drop this presentation right now. Meanwhile, you guys can ask me questions if you have any. So yeah, the floor is open for the questions. You can ask any doubts regarding the course. Also, you can literally ask anything. Let me drop you the PDF. Just give me a moment. I think I must be. I'm unmuting you people. I'm giving you an option to talk. Actually, I muted you all. But anyway, I'll unmute you so that if you have any questions also you can ask. Yeah, you can do that now. Whoever wants to talk can talk.
Hello, sir. I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Sir, I'm Jinapriya, lecturer.
Mhm.
Sir, when we collect the data statistics in the initial stage, before when it goes to the deployment level, how can we verify that collected data is right? Sometimes the predictions also may go wrong based on we collect from n number of statistical data.
Yes, yes.
So, is there any specific techniques or tools we go for verification in that specific case?
Yeah. Very good question. Because that is the major part or the important part to test whether my data is correct or not. So one way to do that is, or the only way to do that is looking at the prediction algorithm, the outcomes of the prediction algorithm. So your machine learning algorithms will give you few statistical values like standard deviation and mean. I'm talking about a very basic prediction. So based on this values, basically what you do is the data that you get, you must be knowing we split this information into training information and test information. You saw in the block diagram, right? You have test algorithm and training algorithm. So you have this test algorithms, and there are various different test algorithms. So I would request you to go to this scikit-learn's algorithms, where you have nearly 6 algorithms, where you can evaluate these algorithms and find out which is giving me the highest mean and lowest standard deviation. These two are the main parameters with which you can decide whether the data that I am using is correct or not. I mean, whether that is helpful or not. And at the same time, you can also decide whether the algorithm that you are using is correct or not, or is it giving me a good prediction or not.
Yeah, that's true, sir. Because in the last way, why I raised this question is usually when it comes to industry, there is a huge amount of investment. So in the development phase, when we get the results at the end, if something goes wrong, we need to start from scratch. Usually the SDLC pattern is as such, right?
Yes,
so henceforth, I asked because before we go for deployment, if there is any techniques, it would be better to in that clarification aspect.
We have these conventional techniques that we follow in the agile. So you have the initial QA testing which will evaluate all the test algorithms, and also they try out with the real-time information. So that is why it is taking, if you see the best example is your self-driving cars. It is taking nearly a lot of time for them to test what these cars are up to prevent number of collisions and all that. So a lot of beta testing happens. That is the only way. If you ask me about the technique, beta testing with real-time information is the only way to identify whether your data is sufficient or not. If that is not sufficient, you feed in more information. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Girls, any other questions? Please unmute and just raise your question.
Okay, I'm going to drop this presentation. It is a PDF. You can drop it.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. Revanth Shivdev here.
Hello, Shivdev sir. Yes.
Yeah. Nice to, first of all, welcome and nice to have you on the program, and thanks for addressing us.
Thank you so much, sir.
Of course, I'll give my presiding speech a little later. I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
I come from a very different background. I'm in the commerce background, and I'm totally a upstart away from this thing.
Okay.
So for the artificial intelligence and these scientific subjects, want to know what is the basic qualification for to learn artificial intelligence and machine learning?
Yeah. So very good question actually. So the basic qualification for that is math, because there are two things here. Even if you want to build a new system on AI or leverage an existing system, you need to understand mathematics a lot, because a lot of algorithms will deal with math. That is the preliminary thing that you need to have. And coming to, I'm talking about the subjects, but coming to the qualifications, and the secondary thing is the programming, because of course there are a lot of systems with which you can drag and drop and build your artificial intelligence systems, but basic programming is important. So first thing is math, programming, and if you want to go in depth, you need to understand the statistics. I mean in particular, and also the data analysis. So the data analysis and statistics is one of the key thing that you need to learn. So these three are pretty much enough for anyone to become. I don't say you need a qualification or like a degree or something, but if you are a person, and you know what, I'll share one experience with you. I was teaching in IIT Bombay. It was a very huge lecture hall, and on the first row, I saw a kid who is 8 years old. I thought he came with his parents, and I found that he is writing the code in Python. And I asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, uh, "I learned statistics, and I got a lot of interest in it, and I tried to expand this subject even more further." And he landed upon creating artificial intelligence systems, and he already built 15 real-time projects on it. So
Wow.
it is not even about that. So if you are very math enthusiast, and even if you don't know math, statistics, programming, and probability is enough for you to start off with AI.
Yeah. And the second question is a little more simpler. Now you're saying that you got to feed data to, you're giving an analogy about when we learn for A for apple, B for boy, and C for cars, and whatever.
Mhm.
So likewise, when you feed the machines or the data,
Mhm.
how do you manage to do it with so many items? There be millions and millions of objects and millions of information.
Right.
How are the machines fed with that?
Yeah, very good question. So this is actually a bigger challenge in front of a lot of machine learning engineers. You know, the initial challenge is collecting the information itself, and the second one is feeding this information to the machines in a very optimized manner. So luckily, we have the current technologies, and this answers one other question: why Python? So Python have this ability, or the libraries which are pre-built by the developers or the open source people, and we have very optimized functions and programs which can retrieve the information, and it is all about data conversions and feeding them. The first requirement is that you need to have a proper programming framework to do it, and the second thing is the processing power that we are talking about. So, and luckily, for this generation, we have already a lot of modules and libraries in Python which can help you to process any kind of information and convert that into a format that you want. So I'll give you a small example where, let us say, you have you want to build a chatbot for hospitals, right? So this chatbot needs to understand what all the questions a patient can ask, right? So this is basically a huge text information that this hospital needs to collect, right? They need to record all the conversations that the patients basically do, the kind of questions they ask, and they need to feed all this text information to the machine learning system. So basically here what happens is, the problem is very simple here. Just convert this text information into a format what your computer understands. And you know what? There is a single line to do it. So that is the kind of advancements which are happening right now. A single line of Python will do the whole task. So that is one. And also, of course, you need to have a supporting processing power or computer power to do it. These two are pretty much enough.
Yeah. That's amazing. It must be a humongous task, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering my question. I have one request for the participants in this webinar. There are hardly any questions coming up. Only Mr. Janapriya and I will ask questions. After such an interesting session of one hour nearly, there are hardly any questions. So either other participants have understood everything and they don't have any doubts, or they haven't understood at all. So either one of the two. So please, I request the students especially not to hesitate to ask questions. Nothing questions. I'm sure Mr. Revant Kumar will be happy to answer.
One question has come from a student, sir. Shanmugha. Does data science differ from data analytics?
Yeah, it is just, if you ask me the difference, it is just the difference between your science and technology. That's it. Data science deals with all the theoretical concepts, and data analytics talks about the practical approach of how you need to analyze the information. The technology part of it, you will be having a lot of software tools to do it. You have Power BI to do it. You have Tableau. Just look at the data analytics tools. So that comes under the analytics part. Science is it talks about the algorithms and the techniques with which you can get a lot from the data that you have. Yeah.
One more question. Why does R isn't used much in data science or ML? Even R gives much of edge to statistical tasks.
Very simple. The answer is very simple. Everything that R does, your Python does. So why to go with R again? If I'm building my machine learning algorithm, if I'm able to do it in Python, which is an advanced programming language and which is very versatile, why would I go and learn R? Of course, R is, you know what? From the last 5 years, R is getting used extensively in terms of statistics, and they're using it in AI also. I have my friend in Geo who works in Geo Infocom. They extensively work on R, and they are building a solution for your Geo TV, which will add recommendation system to your Geo TV. So they work. Her task is just to work on R. So from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock, she just works on R only as a data analyst. There are there,
The next question is that only, sir. How is our algorithm related to AI?
Yeah, related question. So it will help you. R basically helps you to understand the information and classify the information. And as I told you, it just converts your unstructured info into structured info and draw insights from the data itself. Yeah.
One more question is AI more useful than other technology? If yes, why?
Yeah, one thing that we need to understand as an engineering student is that, first of all, there is no competition between the technologies. And you know what? Technologies help technologies. You may ask, okay, let's take your question, AI, IoT, and blockchain. And you know what? Without AI, IoT can't become smarter. Without IoT, AI won't be having data. Without blockchain, you don't know how to store the data. I hope you understood. There is no competition here. So as a technologist or as a person who wants to explore technology, you must be aware of each and every one. And I can't say that there is AI is more useful than others, because AI is dependent on a lot of other technologies, and a lot of other technologies are dependent on AI. So everything goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Girls, any other questions?
Sir, one more question.
Yeah,
Myself,
sure.
Rashmi.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
We can say that Python programming is more efficient for AI than R programming.
Yeah, it is. It is more efficient because with R you may just do some statistic problems, but with Python you can actually build a end-to-end system. Even you can build a user interface, right? Without using any other programming language, only with Python you can build something from scratch to advanced level. With R you can't do it. Yeah, R is very niche and pretty much into statistics only. Yeah.
And one more thing, sir, the data wrangling, whatever you have said in the presentation, whether it is used for structuring the data?
Yeah, absolutely. All the data wrangling and even the data analytics.
Okay.
If you run some data analytic problem, it is nothing but you're structuring the information. Yep.
Thank you.
One more question, sir, from a student. What is the difference between strong AI and weak AI?
Strong AI and weak AI, the basic difference is that the kind of problems that they are solving, and also the level of prediction, or the what is it, the precision that it is giving. So it just the differentiation factor itself is the precision. Yeah.
Mention the difference between statistical AI and classical AI.
Yeah, statistical AI is mostly from the data. Basically, there are two types in AI. There are two types. One is you mostly depend upon the data that you have already. So in few cases, what happens is you won't be having the data at all. Let us say in case of self-driving cars, you won't be having much data, right? Much useful data. You may take some 100 different use cases and teach your system, but the same car, if you bring it to India, the scenario changes totally. The road topology changes. The people who come onto the roads changes. So statistical is totally dependent upon the pre-existing information, Classical AI is based on the older statistic techniques, which really don't use the advanced algorithms in case of the implementation. So that's the only difference between these two.
Any other questions, sir?
I have two more questions, Mr. Ravi Kumar.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, will this artificial intelligence, will it kind of create a lot of unemployment? Of course, you mentioned that during the course of your
Yes,
talk.
right.
But, when I remember when the computers came in the big way, there were a lot of strikes in the banks and other sectors saying that don't introduce computers, otherwise we lose our jobs.
Right.
But actually, computers created more jobs.
Yes.
So would that be a scenario with AI as well?
Absolutely. So currently it is already doing it. You know what? It is already doing it. Because even if you see, a lot of companies are now developing tools to collect data efficiently.
Right.
That is, from the last 5 years, I personally know nearly 10 companies in Hyderabad who just came to support AI systems for the bigger companies.
Okay. Yeah.
For companies like Microsoft and all, because Microsoft just can't come down to a very local level and collect information, but their products actually are focused on the local audience, right?
Yeah.
So that is one opportunity. Data collection, just playing around with the data is one opportunity. But the problem here is when it comes to employment, people need to upskill themselves a lot for this. Yes. Let us say there is I'll give you a very crude example. Let us say there is a guy who studied commerce or is from non-tech background, who's sitting as a clerk in a bank. His job is at risk, definitely, because his work is no more needed if he's replaced by AI system. But people need to just change their course of study, or either they just need to understand, okay, before going to any job they need to understand, okay, can I be replaced with a machine? Okay, then only opt for it. If not, just don't go for it. Upskill yourself and go and build a work in any system. And a lot of these people, non-tech people also, they are contributing a lot in analyzing the information as well, manually, on all these tools. So I see a lot of people who switch their careers from a non-tech background to work on MySQL or all these statistical or database operations. It is happening right now. Yeah, it is not something which will happen. It is currently happening in the world. Yeah.
But that will be applicable to the youngsters. Now, people middle-aged or older age,
yes,
their jobs will be at stake. I mean, because unless they make up their minds to again go through the learning process all over again.
I absolutely agree on that. That is at stake. But they need to. The only option is to upskill themselves. Yeah.
Totally different phase.
Yes.
I have one. I hope you don't mind if I ask two more questions.
Of course, you can ask any number. I'm okay with it.
Okay. When did the concept of artificial intelligence kind of take off? Which year? I mean, of course, robotics has always been existent in a different form, crude form, earlier ages. But this ML, the AI concepts, such a large-scale thing. Which year did you? It's just a very academic question.
Yes. So it happened mostly after 2010, because the AI was there from very long. Like it was from 1980s. So bigger organizations like Google actually invented it. They had patents on these systems. But coming to the implementation part, you need to, as I told you, we took an example of Google Maps, right? Why Google Maps went very extensive into the people? The primary factor is the processing power of your mobile phone, the data connectivity. Your 4G came in, 3G came in. People started, and these bigger companies started collecting more and more information, and that is one of the major reasons why Google acquired Android, to collect information of the people. So it took off in a very very high level speed came after 2010. Because there was a need to understand this data that people are generating.
And one last question is, of course, I was trying to, when you spoke about AL and MI and ML and AI, and also you spoke about deep learning.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Can you just give me, I mean, I couldn't, it went over my head, it was a bouncer for me. So can you kindly just throw a short
Mhm.
2 minute, few sentences. I hope I'm not interfering with others.
No, not an issue. Yeah, deep learning is actually the key, and most of the real-time applications now are based on deep learning only. We no more are using machine learning. Machine learning in specific we are not using. Of course, deep learning itself is machine learning. So deep learning is basically just mimicking your neural network, how your neurons work. So I'll give you a small example. If you the Apple example that we talked about. So you compare 5 different features, right? And you land upon a decision based on color, shape, weight, and all that. What if the problem is having 100 different features, 100 different features of an object, or 1,000 different features, or 1 lakh different features? In those cases, we use deep learning, where the number of combinations increase. That's it. And to understand and work on all these combinations, we build a system called artificial neural network, which just works just the way our neurons work. So it just takes, okay, what is the probability out of all these 1,000 different combinations or 1,000 different features that we have? What is the probability of the feature number one? Likewise, it calculate the probabilities of all these 100 features or these 1,000 features, and it will decide or take a decision how much probability is, how much weight is added that this object is an apple, how much weight is added to say that this is an orange. So number of combinations increase. If you ask me about the difference, it is just a number of combinations. Yeah.
So deep learning is a part of the course of the AI and ML, or is it another course altogether?
Yeah. It is actually 60 to 50% we target deep learning only. Yeah, than machine learning. Machine learning we talk because just to establish the basics, but most of the applications, if you take your computer vision applications, right, camera applications, because they deal with a lot of huge data, right? All these applications can be done only using deep learning, but not machine learning. Yeah.
One more question, sir. What are the niches we have to learn to be data analyst apart from programming and maths, that is statistics?
Oh my God. You're saying that you can't learn programming, but okay, then the niche would be doing nothing. That's the only niche that you could have. Yeah, or okay, a data analyst. Okay, that's a tricky question. Without knowing these two, you need to go to the people and understand. You need to become a businessman who will identify the use cases. Okay, you're collecting data. Which kind of data I need to collect to solve which kind of problem? Let's say you have a problem. Let's say you have COVID crisis. Which kind of data you need to collect and where to go to get this information? That is the kind of a task to become a data analyst. Probably you can just sit in front of your team and see, okay, this data is working fine. The data that we collected from Hyderabad Gandhi Hospital is fine. All right. And so this kind of business use cases you can solve if you are not a person, because if you ask me, generally I am now bored of programming. I'm now bored of statistics. So what I focus on is just understanding the business use cases. That is pretty important. A lot of Indians don't do it. That is the gap between the foreign countries, because they are very good at identifying the use cases and business problems. We just work for them, and we are very good at identifying implementing the problems. So if you're a
That's
person
true.
who can't implement, then go and find the business use cases. Yeah.
I guess because our students run away when the term programming comes, I guess
Yes.
henceforth this question has arisen.
Yes. It is good that in some way it is good that they are running away from the programming. Yeah. And
Hello, sir.
yeah, sure.
Ma'am, not actually.
Hello, sir.
Yes, yeah.
This is Rekha, sir.
Yes, yeah.
Sir, as it is in artificial intelligence, more and more data is required, and a huge amount of, so many samples will be collecting.
Right,
So
right.
how that the storage is managed and how it is protected or security will be provided for that huge amount of data?
Absolutely. Very good question. So there are two ways to do it. Number one is the conventional way that we are already using, your big data. So where you can read more about big data because the indexing and the speed with which you operate among this huge chunk of data is pretty important. So there are various data management techniques, and there are various different tools are coming in. That is one way. And as you're talking about security, there is this blockchain which will add more security to your data by making the data decentralized. That is again a very huge concept. So what I would recommend you is study about centralized data storage, cryptography, and decentralized data storage. So look and explore these three things, then you will pretty much understand how it can be achieved.
Okay, sir. Okay, fine. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Sir.
Any more questions?
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Sir,
Vijay Krishna.
yes.
Yep.
Sir, how is neural network connected to AI?
Yeah, a good question. So neural network is basically a technique to achieve AI. So as I told you, neural network is a part of deep learning. Deep learning is a part of machine learning, and machine learning itself is a way with which you increase the intelligence of a system. So your neural network is basically a kind of an algorithm. You are using that algorithm, someone may not use it. They may come up with some other kind of algorithm or a solution to achieve more precision in the outcomes, right? So neural network is a technique or an algorithm with which you can achieve deep learning so that you can make any kind of computer system artificial intelligence. That is how you need to relate from the bottom up.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I think some questions arise.
Yeah, Bayesian network or the Bayesian algorithm is basically much into probability. So that is a very particular topic. If you ask me, I can give you a brief on it. That is a very huge concept. So Bayesian network or the Bayesian algorithms are basically used for the predictions only, the linear predictions. It is used in machine learning, not deep learning, or machine learning. So Bayesian networks are used over there. Yeah, it is a kind of an algorithm that you. Hope you guys got the file that I shared. If not, let me know. I'm sharing it again if at all you missed it. So the complete overview is over there. So what I would encourage you guys is to identify the terminology and try to understand the terminology. I would definitely recommend you guys to learn on your own. Self-learning is the key. But if you want any direction, just enroll for a course or something who will give you a direction. Courses are all about that, right? So you can explore. I think you already have a subject AI, and just convert that bookish knowledge to something which is practical. That is pretty important. Yeah.
Sir, one more question, sir.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, for security and other things, you said we can refer the, cryptography and the blockchain technologies. But while selecting the algorithms on usually on what basis these algorithms will be chosen?
Yeah.
Is there any particular criteria, or
Yes.
depending on the complexity of the problem or the situation, is selected?
Yeah. So before deploying an algorithm, there is a procedure to evaluate the algorithm. You evaluate by using the same data. You evaluate like nearly 10 to 12 algorithms and find the standard deviation values. So whichever is giving you the less standard deviation is chosen as the best algorithm for your data, because your efficiency of the algorithm changes with the data, and your data is not something which is constant. It is always dynamic, right? So algorithm evaluation needs to be done first, and then you land upon which algorithm I need to choose. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, fine. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So one more question. What is Prolog in AI?
Prolog, you may not understand this. This is kind of an advanced topic here. So Prolog is basically used in the statistical analysis mostly. So let me give you one example. So it is a programming language that is basically used to create these statistical information for AI systems, just like your Python. So it is not much efficient, but it is kind of, there are various different libraries and modules in Python which can replace Prolog as well. Yeah, it is just a implementation tool
Thank you, sir.
for your AI.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah. Yes, Vijay.
What is TensorFlow and what is this used for?
Yeah, TensorFlow is basically a framework or a module of deep learning. It is mostly used in your chatbots and speech recognition. You have this voice recognition, right? Voice to text control, and also your speech analysis. Even if you're talking different languages, TensorFlow will be used to in those kind of applications. Yeah, chat applications and speech recognition applications.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
It looks like we have covered all our questions. Is there any questions before wrap up? Okay, thank you. Now I call upon and I request our executive committee member of SGR Education Society, Shubdev sir, to give his presidential address. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Janapriya. It's been a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to have participated in this excellent program. And first of all, I must congratulate the principal and the faculty for having conducted this program and keeping the college in tune with the moving times and upgrading the students with their knowledge and information. And for also having chosen such an eminent person like Mr. Revant Kumar. And of course, during the vote of thanks should be thanked heartily, Mr. Revant Kumar, but also on behalf of the management, I must thank you for having given a valuable time and spending so much of time and answering the questions so patiently and making such an excellent presentation. This today is AI has become a huge concept, and everybody is talking about artificial intelligence. It is the way forward, no doubt about it. But there is, of course, there'll be a balanced growth, and there'll be non-AI, non-machine learning concepts also. It's a tricky situation for people to mix and match, and also combine without ignoring the need and the necessity of AI implementation, because that's where the people have progress. For a person like me who's a layman in scientific concepts, as an entrepreneur, maybe I'll have to kind of look forward to employ somebody who's well versed in AI, so implement those concepts into my organization to make it grow. What I'm saying is this is information to the students, but as you grow up, so please make the best best opportunity being provided to you is very, very useful, and you're extremely lucky that such things are coming up in your course curriculum, and that's the way forward. And you'll be future ready if you're well accomplished in these things. So please do not neglect or waste your opportunities that have been coming by. All your principal and your staff, your faculty are going overboard to help you do this. And there are millions, there's tons of opportunities and tons of possibilities that you can do. Please take the opportunity and make the best use of it. Because everybody may not excel, but everybody has a role to play in it. Like Mr. Revant Kumar said, data collection itself is a big task. Data analysis. So what part of the AI you fit in, that your aptitude will itself tell you. Everybody will not be able to do everything, but everybody is required to do something. So please make the best use of opportunities. And I don't want to say too much because most of the thing is information is very well covered by Mr. Revant Kumar. And but what I was quite surprised, or to an extent, shall I say, disappointed, was that we had about 70 participants at the beginning of the program, and most of them were invisible. They decided to turn off the video link. Okay, so I think it's required that you show yourself and you will be present physically and mentally, and there at your attention span. I don't know why Mr. Revant Kumar. Mr. Revant Kumar, can you come on can you come on the video now? Is there a problem?
Yeah, actually, I'm having some bandwidth issues. Let me set it up. Yeah.
Okay, it'll be nice to see you because
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, we've heard you, but we want to also see you so that
Yes,
it has a
just a
difference.
minute. I'll connect.
Yeah,
you.
sure.
Yeah.
Now, don't mistake me otherwise, because especially the students, they must be all present in the class. You can't be, maybe just switched on your Zoom, logged on a Zoom meeting and doing something else. So attention span is kind of this thing. I was checking how many people are joined. Anyway, so without much ado, I will leave this. I think I thank Mrs. Prema Siddharaj for having invited me to preside over this lovely session. And it's a first webinar that I am presiding over. So webinar, a lot of webinars I've attended. Nice. There you are, Mr. Raymond. Welcome on there. Welcome to the program. Visually visible, and that's nice. So, and please, Mrs. Prema, please continue your good work. Already you lined up a lot of webinars during this week, and so as long as this COVID challenge continues, I think it's necessary that you keep the students occupied with such kind of good programs and enhance their knowledge base and skills. So with those few words, I think I've spoken enough, and I don't want to just say something just for saying's sake. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I look forward to the colleges having more such programs. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. In spite of your busy schedule, you have joined us and made this
No.
yet
Don't
more
say those
special.
things, because this has been a learning experience for me also. Though I'm not such a busy person or a quiet person. So,
It's indeed happy for all of us, sir, that you joined us today.
thank you. Right.
Thank you so much, sir. Last but not the least, I call upon our student Sneha GP from final year BSc to give vote of thanks. Over to you, Sneha.
Thank you, Gina ma'am. Good afternoon to one and all. It's my privilege and honor to extend a note of thanks in today's webinar on artificial intelligence organized by Department of Computer Science Technovision in association with Harvard Technologies and IIT Hyderabad. I extend my sincere and immense gratitude to our resource person, Revant Kumar sir, Senior Research Engineer, Harvard Technologies, for his informative presentation. Thank you, sir. I thank DC Shudil sir, Executive Committee Member, SDRES, for his constant support. Thank you, sir. I thank our principal, Dr. Prema Siddharaju ma'am, for her unconditional support. Thank you, ma'am. I sincerely thank faculties of CS Department, members of Harvard Technologies and IIT Hyderabad for organizing this webinar. I thank all the faculty members, UG and PG students of various colleges for participating in this webinar. Thank you one and all. Stay home, stay safe.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you so much. At the end of the session, one thing is sure, just human intelligence is not enough, that intelligence has to be even incorporated to the machines. That is what been known to us today. Well, all good things comes to end, but when it comes to education and learning, it's always the beginning. So let's hope lot more sessions, interactive and knowledgeable sessions comes in the near future. And let me believe the same interactive participants, enthusiastic participants to see in the next time as well. Thank you one and all. Stay home, stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you,
shall
sir.
we log out,
It was nice
Mrs. Prema?
presentation.
Yeah, you guys can log out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your participation. And next time, I look forward to see more faces than blank screens.
Yeah. So everyone, just stay home. Just don't roam around and prove yourself as heroes. Just yeah. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
And spend this time usefully. The lockdown period, there's all.
We have nothing to do, so at least we should do this.
No. Nothing to do with this mobile phones and all the access to all the data, all this
Right.
kind of infotainment and so much of distractions available. So
Right,
it's
right.
time, I know you say, this is this thing to spend. Do enjoy time, but do something useful and do something constructive that will help
Right,
you in the
right.
long.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
you
sir.
very much.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
Sir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.